Welcome back to Maxell TV, everybody. This is McNuggets, and today we are going to start Project Blue. Now, I have been working on some commander decks, and if you look over here on my MOX field, you can see that we've got a few. And I used to build a lot of decks like theory crafting and stuff like that. And if you've watched some of the earlier videos on the channel, you'll see like the Black Waltz deck we made. That's this one. We don't like Y'shtola. And then, somebody had commented on a video that their friend played Y'shtola and they wanted to play a deck that could kind of fight with it and do a lot of damage and stuff like that. So I, spent a day working on a deck, and then I tried to power it down to, suit not as competitive, because if you look at my considering column, there is just so many cards in black and red that are very powerful and also very expensive, cost wise. And it just depends on really what you want to do. Like a Sheldred is like $100, but you should probably want a Sheldred in this deck, if you're going all the way in, right? Like, balls deep. So there's, like Beseech the Mirror. This is a $30 tutor. So, as like I said, there is Jessica's Will. There's all these cards, Torment of Hellfire, all sorts of things that you could do with this deck. But I wanted to make it budget friendly for the gentleman because I wasn't sure sort of what he had to work with. And I tried to get it down to this $144. It doesn't really include basic land count, so we use like super basics instead of like full art basics and stuff. But something around $150 that you could buy all these cards and build this deck and do some things with Black Waltz number 3. And I was like tested some games and actually came up against the Y'shtola deck, which I beat. It was really funny. Ended up killing like one player than another player than them last. So we like to build decks. This deck does it have the super combo in it? It's got Stormkiln Artist and Haze of Rage, right? Yeah, so you can just make like infinite mana and get like infinite triggers off of your Black Waltz. So even in it, because it's sorcery speed, if they've already shown they can't interrupt it, you can just make a bunch of mana, play the Black Waltz, start it again. So it's pretty determinate. And the thing about black is like you get tutors. Even if you're not playing game changers, you get tutors. And so your deck is actually like super consistent anyway. And this when I put it in the deck was worth about $3 or $4, and now it's like shooting up. Anyway, yeah. So that's what we're looking at as far as, like I said, like deck building. But I personally am more of like a blue player, more of like an Izzet player. Izzet is definitely where I am in my heart, and I like to counter spells, and I like to play blue stuff, and I like to kind of like control the game a little bit a lot of the time. And I just felt like there weren't a lot of counter spells in precons. I thought it's very interesting. If you look through all the precons, 147 precons, I went through all these. I opened all these up and I went through the deck lists and I looked at like all the precons, and basically out of all of these precons, went all the way back to 2012 or 13 or something like that. The most counter spells in one deck is like three or four. Even the control decks, they have more like board sweepers kind of interaction, like targeted removal, than counter spells. And I thought that's interesting. Why are there so few counter spells? Because again, like when I first started playing Magic, I had random Simic deck or possibly even Sultai, and I had cool cards and I was doing my thing. But when you watch somebody play a Swan Song, right? When they play a 1 mana counter, you're like, wow, that's a cool spell. Or when they play like a Mana Drain, like the big expensive spells, like that's like a 2 mana counter spell, and they get all this. It's very weird because you're like, well, none of my cards are that good, right? And it makes you think, well, now I got to go get these cards because these cards are obviously powerful because this smart guy that's been playing Magic for a long time, he's playing this card, and this card's awesome, and it blew this guy out, right? So I'm looking through all these, and there's just no strong interactive controlling commanders that have more than like three. I think 3 was the maximum, like in Isperia Supreme Judge deck from years ago. And like one of the recent commanders does have a Swan Song in it, but that's a card like they could be printing in every set, like in every commander. I mean, every other year or something like that. There could be so many Swan Songs that the card could cost $1. It could be like, what's the red card? Blasphemous Act, right? Like they print that like almost every year because they know people want to play with it. Now, when you spent your first like 8-10 turns like building up a board and you're like looking strong and somebody Blasphemous Acts, you're not going to be happy. right? But I was looking at why are there so few counterspells in commander decks? And here you go. To ensure games are fun, proactive, and interactive for all players, and excessive permission effects are generally disliked in multiplayer and can often make the controller a target. Oh well. Precons focus on board state interaction, creature removal, board wipes, rather than stack interaction, providing more theater and accessibility for gameplay to beginners. So basically, feel bads, right? But everybody wants to do their thing. And when you build your deck to do a thing, you want it to do its thing. And that includes like protecting your board state or protecting your creatures or stopping the most dangerous threats from hitting the board from other players because it doesn't it might make that one guy feel bad, right? But then the other people you're kind of like a hero to because you saved them. Something like that, right? Everybody it's there's going to be a certain amount of salt from everybody, but there's like this social contract that we're all trying to do our thing. And if your thing is to counter spells, well, I'm the guy to come to because I think that one of the fun things to do in the game, in any game, is to sort of stop other people doing their thing. It's just fun for me. I don't know, maybe I'm an asshole. So anyway, we are starting Project Blue, and Project Blue is blue and another colored decks. So we're going to have 4 decks. Blue green is our first one. And you're going to get a core of cards in the deck, instance, essentially, counter spells. So let me pull up the visual grid I think we want. Yeah. Yeah. So every deck for Project Blue is going to come with counterspell, disallow, essence scatter, negate, overwhelming denial, strict serenade, summary dismissal, swan song, and tail's end. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Every deck we build for Project Blue is going to have these 9 counterspells as its core of interaction. And that's not going to be able to stop everybody from doing everything, right? But you're going to have efficient, powerful spells that you know you can use when somebody casts their big Eldrazi, when somebody casts their commander, when somebody casts anything and you just want a real counter spell in your deck. And of course, the 1 mana Swan Song and the 1 mana Strict Serenade, they go hand in hand these days. And people are like, well, Strict Serenade is not as good as Swan Song. I want to counter your commander from coming back down. I want to counter that Planeswalker that's going to ruin the game for everybody. I want to counter your One Ring, right? So that's what we're trying to do here. We're going to build decks around this suite of instant speed interaction. But we're going to build decks of varying power levels. And I also wanted to throw into each deck 1 or 2 spicy little pieces to make it more prized, more interesting and fun, and be like, that is a cool card to have in my deck. And I thought the first thing we could try and do was maybe some dragons, some blue-green Simic dragons, and we would use Korlessa, who says you may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast dragon spells from the top of your library. So, obviously, we want a good amount of dragons, because it's like having an extra card in hand. So, that's fun. Korlessa is cheap. Why did I want a cheap commander? Well, one of the things I wanted to give the dragon deck commander is a MOX. So we put a MOX Jasper into the deck. Even at like low power level games, this card's not going to like break the game. But like I said, I wanted the deck to have like a centerpiece card that made it a little bit more valuable and a little bit more special. So we are playing dragons and we are giving the owner a MOX Jasper. So whoever buys this deck is going to get this really cool dragon deck with a MOX in it. And they're going to get the other appropriate dragon rocks, which are actually kind of good. You're going to get your regular Soul Ring and your Talisman. I'm probably not going to have the exact same printings here. We'll see. I was building this deck out, and I wanted to make sure I had all the cards on the list. And there might be a couple final changes before this deck goes live for sale. But as you can see, plenty of dragons. I wanted to keep it kind of budget, so this is again without lands and sleeves and the rest of it. This deck will probably go up for about 125, something like that. I want it to be fairly budget, fairly accessible, and something that, You could play basically bracket 2. There's no game changers in the deck. I don't think I've got any in here. Let's see. Where does it show? Bracket info. No game changers. And so you've got like the one little MOX, which shouldn't bother anybody because when you're playing bracket 2 and you're playing like exhibition games, you're like, I'm a dragon deck. I have a dragon MOX. That shouldn't really piss anybody off. Most of your spells are pretty expensive. So yeah, but we do have pretty good options for dragons these days, thanks to Dragonstorm Tarkir and Battle for Baldur's Gate and all these other things. There are also some very expensive dragons, cost value wise, that are not in the deck. That, you know, if somebody bought this deck and really enjoyed this deck and this was like their pet dragon deck, then yes, they're gonna want like the ancient there's like a expensive like blue or green dragon. It's like $50 or $60. And the same, there's like a colorless one, I think, as well. There are some ancient dragons that are super expensive. There's Old Gnawbone, the green dragon. He's probably like, you know, pretty high up there in price as well. But, you know, for the most part, all these dragons are pretty fun and do a lot of cool things. Like you've got like Kaiga, right, where you can steal a creature when it dies. The Meringue River region is a great card. You know, you got like the option, and then, you know, it's pretty powerful when it hits like the battlefield. You've got Transcendent Dragon, which is like a counter spell, but allows you to like use the spell you counter. Like there's just so many cool dragons. You've got a Shimmer Dragon, which helps you draw cards. So we've got dragons from over the years. Most of them are a little bit more recent, I guess, but there's probably a pretty good split. So anyway, I put in a ton of dragons, all the blue green Simic dragons that were the best of what they kind of did or represented, minus the most expensive ones to purchase. Because like I said, when I build decks, I still want people to have room to decide, hey, this is great. I want to like really max this deck out, or maybe be like, I like it where it is, but maybe I want to change in a couple of cards. You know, that's your option. I'm building decks for you guys to play with, to love, and to like work with. You know, but you're gonna get like the core and the skeleton of the things that make the deck function well. So like I'm putting, you know, Clear the Mind. So like if you get like milled, even got Guy's Blessing is like anti-mill, but Clear the Mind also helps you like recycle your spells if the game goes really long and you need to keep getting some dragons back. You've got some good removal. You know, you're going to have like the Pongify and the Rapid Hybridization and the Beast Within. So, you know, there are going to be a lot of things going on. You're going to have some triggers. You're going to have some like +1 counters. You're going to have all this little things going on. And you're going to have your pretty little MOX. And then you got these 2 enchantments that are going to help you ramp and draw cards and kind of filter through your deck. You got a good amount of lands. So, yeah, this is part 1 of Project Blue. And this is what we're going to be offering as our next couple of decks on eBay. Now that I just sold the Tatiova deck that you guys saw, I'm going to end up finishing this deck off, getting it all sleeved up and together, getting it live. So yeah, watch this space. Project Blue. Next one we'll be going over will be a Niv Mizzet deck. So like, subscribe, comment, interact. Please help me get like recognizing the algorithm. And that is basically it for today. So I will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Love you, everybody.